Hello everyone, welcome back to the next edition of the DFS Down Under show. Smatho 10 and Big Hef here from Daily Fantasy Rankings, Australia's #1 resource for Australian rules football. Daily Fantasy, we're back for another show of the Down Under show. Let's bring in Hef. He's buoyant after his Saturday tips getting up here for SportChamps, Australia's #1 betting fantasy side. Hef, how are you today, mate?
Well, good. Sometimes the mud sticks, Smatho. You throw enough at the wall, sometimes you get a little bit hanging on. That's what we got last week with Fierce Impact. I wouldn't be too confident I'm going to tip you another winner this week, but I'll have a go. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that a little bit
It's
later.
not the biggest part of the show either. There's a massive bomb coming on tonight's show. And it's going to divide the DFS community in Australia. I'm really looking forward to the fallout. That's just a little teaser.
Wowee. All right, well, make sure I'll time code it in the YouTube description here, which you
Absolutely.
can find.
They'll be coming far and wide to see this. Don't worry about that.
All right. So, yes, do make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you get to dailyfantasyrankings.com.au for any time that you need your hand in daily fantasy here in Australia. And, mate, after last week's plethora of sports, we go again this week. This is round 18 of the AFL. This is the last round where we can see all the teams, and then we'll get into the finals action in a couple of weeks' time. Mate, is there anything that's been catching your eye in the past week?
Well, all I know is that we're doing the show while the Eagles are playing again, so I've sort of got one eye on the Eagles. What a performance last week to get over the Saints. Is that what happened last week? It's a long time in football a week these days. You've always got 3 rounds to bloody go through. But, I think they did. But they've just got the nose in front of the Kangas at the moment. It's a huge last round in terms of finals for AFL. So let's hope we get a few good games.
Let's hopefully get a few good games because also there's none next week. So attention will start looking to elsewhere. And obviously my attention already start looking on Saturdays at the track here, Hef. And
yeah.
Now, last week I did follow your Fierce Impact into our Sports Champs tournament, which was the $20 make cash or get your entry back. And Smatho did, speaking in the third person, he did make cash last week after just barely getting across 10K. So that was pretty awesome. But this week on Sports Champs, there are plenty of tournaments going around, especially the early birds that are now available on the site. The main feature is the $20 one. Where the first 200 entries get their $5 back in bonus bets, which is awesome. If you guys want a little bit of a high roll, there's the $100 one where you get $20 back for the first 100 entries. So make sure you get onto sportchamps.com.au and join in the fun there. That's going to be ramping up over the next few weeks. So I think a little tradition here now, Hef, on the show that I asked for your mud sticking tip here. Now, you've come on and said, I've only got one tonight, so this better be good. Tell us what's happening on Saturday at the track. Where are we? And what is your tip for this week?
I think I said I only need one. So I only need one to get the job. Caulfield Race 6, number 2, Aiden's Field. Very good run first up at Moonee Valley. A little bit worried about the gate, but I think this is a horse with a massive amount of upside. So just the one for Saturday, Smatho. Get that into your Sports Champs punting. Aiden's Field, race 6, number 2.
Excellent. I might be joining the little $5 comp on that one and just putting the whole 10K on it. See how that goes. No good if it doesn't lose, but that's okay. Make sure you join Sports Champs. The link's in the description of this particular video. It's great fun and it's going to be some huge contests on the site coming up. All right, let's move on to the next part of the show, and that's always Smatho's 2 thumbs up. And geez, it's been another big week of nominations for the 2 thumbs up there. We're starting to run out of slates. This will be the last week. We will have 5 huge slates to talk about. So make sure if you want to get your nominations in for the 2 thumbs up, make sure you do get up on either on DraftKings or DraftStars. And obviously there was a few this week. Frio Blood, Liam Swan, a good friend of the show. He got up after finally winning an adjustment. He's been sweating them all year.
Yep.
Turkey Slap. He's been pretty good lately. Turkey Slap. Chris Eddie 999, he's been pretty good as well. Over at DraftKings, the good fan of the show, Grant 25281203. He gave us a little shout out when he got up on DraftKings. Deluxe 88 and Big Days. He also got up on DraftKings, but It's been a long time.
Hey, that's only 3. There was 4 DraftKings slates. We missing one?
Yeah, we are missing one here. This is the winner. This is going to be the winner of the 2 thumbs up this week. If you cast your minds back to Monday night, as you can see,
your mind hasn't left Monday night.
as you can see, I'm rocking the winner's cap from the Bastards on the weekend after getting up in a little Sunday tournament down here in Hobart, and so confidence was high, and so this is my segment. It's been tradition to give it out to the battlers, single bulleters guys who just love the DFS scene, and well,
you'll wobble off, mate.
this as I said, it's my segment. I can do what I like. But let's be honest. It's going to be the first and last time. Give myself the 2 thumbs up this week. Managed to pull off a single bullet win on DraftKings for the Pies and Gold Coast team. Let's bring up the side here, Hef, and you can talk me through how did I get up on Monday night there for us.
I could probably say this word for word because you've taught me through it umpteen times since it happened. Actually, how about you talk us through it here, Smatho? How did you settle on how many lineups and how did you settle on this?
One lineup. Sitting at the kitchen table, just having something to eat. Looked at DraftKings around 20 minutes to go. Saw there was a little bit of an overlay. I thought, well, let's just chuck it in the double up and the little the small entry one. And then I saw the overlay, said, I'll kick myself after what happened on Draft Stars the week before. Yes. Let's be honest, I've learnt from that. So I put that in the main and must have got up to 3/4 time. And I was around top 30. And then, it just started just build and built. Top 5. And then I hit the lead, 5 minutes to go, chucked it on the telly. And then, and then I dropped a third. And then the adjustments got me over the line. So...
so let's look at those names. Brody, R. Whelan, Jay Barrett, Lampy.
Lampy, yes.
Have all been upstaged by Wacko Smatho. Now, run us through Hoskin Elliott. How'd you get him in the team?
He was pretty cheap.
Will Powell, how'd you get him in the team?
Will Powell, I thought he will be a under-owned player. I thought that was my under-owned for the play for the night, considering everyone was going to pile into Collingwood mids. So I got him Brown's in there because you just had to, because it's the only way to afford it when I got Grundy in. Because you only had Grundy or Witts to choose from. And then I read back through Tom's article and he said, pile into Gold Coast defenders. And look what I've done. Pile into Crispin and Quainer. So that might have got me a little bit contrarian over the field on that particular lineup. So, it was good.
Wonderful. Well done, Smatho.
Now, it feels wrong to give myself 2 thumbs up. So if you want to do the honour for me.
It feels wrong to say it too, but go for it. Go for it, Smatho. I'm not giving it to you. You got to give it to yourself.
Well done, Smatho. 2 thumbs up to you. Well done. Took you all year.
Champion work.
But look at that return on investment. Single bullets are the way to go. Well done.
Single bullet. Well, yeah. Fair enough. The single bullet. I'm always a fan of single bullet winner. So good on you. A week where you said no one deserved it this week, so I'm going to give it to myself. So big shout out to all the winners this week, but pick a better week to win if you want the thumbs up. You can't be winning the same week as Smatho if you want it. But that's enough of that, Smatho. Let's move on because we've got more contests to win. You picked out another great game for us this week too.
I have picked out a great game. And just before we move on, I would probably prefer to win in week 3 of the AFL when the pools are a little bit higher, but any win's a win. All right, so I got excited over a GPP win, so that, well done.
Yeah, Jesse, I remember another DFR member, Jesse, he took home $20,000 US for his AFL win, and you've got the one.
Got the one.
Just to make you feel better.
A win is a win. All right.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to Friday Night Footy, and we start here with St Kilda and the GWS Giants in a finals-like game. Winner goes pretty much home for the Giants here. So the Saints are favourites at $1.74, the Giants at $2.10. The spread's currently 4.5, and the total's around 121.5. As for the fantasy contest, $50,000 GPP's up on DraftStars, and DraftKings have a $4,000 US contest for that one. In team news, just a couple of changes tonight. Jack Riccardi and Stephen Cornelio are back in the side for Adam Kennedy and Harry Himmelberg. And for the Saints, Dan Hanbury, who's going to be a bit underdone, would you think? And Jake Cole are in for Nick Hind and Zach Jones, who is injured. As for the free tools on the Daily Fantasy Rankings website, go to the Data Tools section, click on AFL, and go to the Points Against tool. It's the one that you want, and it shows that both of these teams don't actually leak points at all in most positions. Although you can see there the Giants at the bottom of the list for midfield points against, but there is a trend towards the average for the premium midfielders in the last few weeks. However, if you go up against the Giants in the ruck, you tend to win the most hitouts, as both Jacobs and Mumford have struggled all season long. So, Hef, you've already poo-pooed this game already. So what are your fantasy thoughts when you're trying to attack this late?
Yeah, they're both teams that I've been trying to avoid all season. So when they come up against each other, it makes things pretty difficult. Let's not remember another tip I gave out, Richmond last week. I can't give you one at those prices. The Giants, impossible team to catch. Saints keep projecting like they're going to do something, and then they keep proving that they're still St Kilda. So, this match could go 100 different ways. I have no confidence at all how it's going to play out, and as a result, if you're playing some lineups, I would suggest a very wide spread of game situations. I think a GWS stack, a St Kilda stack, nothing would surprise me in this game.
All right, okay. Well, let's start with the rucks, and who's it? Marshall, Paddy Ryder have been pretty much dual rucking all season long, apart from a couple of games that Ryder was out and Marshall tends to go off, but they seem to have got along this year. They're going up against Jacobs, who had a really good game last week. So can we trust Sauce in this particular matchup, or do we have to try and pick one of our Saints guides for this one?
I think it's pretty safe to say you can have zero Sauce here, Smatho.
Yep.
Because Mumford's playing.
Yep.
So.
Look at that.
Yes, no, Sauce, he did play last week, but then he got dropped and Mumford came in. He had that huge game against Adelaide, the old firm.
Oh, that's right. They had a midweek game too. Well, there you
go.
go.
They just dumped him and brought Mumford back. So, interesting points here. Like, Paddy Ryder's coming off 95 against Nick Natanui, and he can be played at 10,000. As the season's gone on, Ryder does seem to get more of this ruck roll than Marshall. Last game, he did have 83% of the centre bounces, Ryder. And they really left, that's Marshall 17%, 2 weeks in a row, actually, that he played that little in the centre bounces. So, considering you've got to pay 13,000 here for Marshall, and you can get Paddy Ryder for 10, I think Paddy Ryder's the obvious if you're going to go with the Saints ruck. Now, Mumford, you've been poo-pooing Mumford there, Smatho. His last few games has been 48 plus his last 5 games, getting through to three games over 60. We're only paying 8,600 for him here. I think he's playable, Mumford. I much prefer him if I'm playing a GWS ruck to Finlayson. We'll probably talk later about St Kilda being quite hard to score against if you're a forward. They've also brought in Jake Carlisle just to shore up those tall back stocks. So $1,000 cheaper for Mumford over Finlayson. He's my pick of the GWS. So if I had to rank him, I'd go Ryder 1, Mumford 2 here.
Okay, fair enough. It does seem a little bit strange paying $13,400 for a forward pocket, full forward. Would you think it? So, look, he has ability, and he needs to be playing by himself, Marshall. So, yes, I have to probably agree with your rankings there. Yeah.
So he has scored 80 plus in games this year with Ryder. So it's not impossible. He's actually had a really consistent run there of going 80 plus, Marshall. So I don't think he's the worst player in the world, but I do think, Paddy Ryder, you would expect him to jump over Mumford.
All right, let's move on to the defence. And so I did notice in the DFR tools that the Saints in the last 5 games have given up 70-plus points per play in the top 3, which means it's your premium backs that you might want to target here. So that thinks like the likes of Williams and Haynes, etc. Am I on the right track here in terms of defence? Because there's the tools are saying this way.
They are. All season it's sort of been, let's attack GWS with backs. It's the only real place we've been able to get them if we're not worrying about the rucks. So I do think it's possible to go either way here. I'm going to get sick of saying that through the night. Now, there's a few things I'm thinking about that the data can't tell us, Smatho. First of all, Zach Williams, anything you read, this is going to be his last game in GWS colours, unless somehow they make the finals. But what do you reckon that does for his psyche? Does it come out and roll the dice and take him on and chase the ball and who cares? I'm not going to play any defence because I'm gone anyway. Or does he's just ready to go? He's just going through the motions. Which way would you lean? Being the recent winner of DK, we want some stuff from you here.
I would like someone to get a little tool out and say, find players on their last game before moving clubs, how well they went, fantasy-wise.
That would be genius. What are the fantasy boss guys doing?
Like the guys like Bryce Gibbs, or his last game in Carlton, etc.
Yeah. He was quite good, actually, Gibbs, wasn't he? Well, he scored. Whether he was good is another thing. But
that's right. But personally, yes, the mindset is a funny thing in fantasy. So obviously, this game is still a die for them. So you'd think they'll go in 100%, play his role as the coach asked him to. He's well priced. He's going to be well owned in this particular matchup. So I quite like him here.
Now, one thing also with Williams, that if we look at the ins and outs, we have Riccardi in, Himmelberg out. That's like for like. We have Cornelio in. We have Kennedy out. So we're bringing in a midfielder and we're losing a backman. So first, straight away, I'm sort of looking at this midfield in GWS, thinking which of these guys can go back to sort of even up the queue. And I'm seeing 41% centre bounces last week for Zach Williams. He never attended a centre bounce for the rest of the year. Now I'm thinking he's going back to that 0 centre bounce gig with Kennedy out of the team. Whether it's quite that simple, I don't know, but that worries me a little bit with Williams. So he's well priced. He's coming off a 90. I think he might be, dare I say, a little bit of fool's gold. And if we get the added bonus that he's just given up on life and he's ready to leave GWS, that would be a good result too. I'm going to go with another little theory along those lines here with Hunter Clark, Smatho. This is a bloke who is immensely talented and almost as hard to catch. But one thing I've noticed here is last week, first time in a while they had him in the centre bounces. He was up to 33% there. When we have a look at the ins and outs, they lose Zach Jones, they bring in Dan Henry. That's pretty midfielder for a midfielder. They lose Hind, and they bring in Jake Carlisle. So all of a sudden we've got an extra back from last week for St.Kilda. Clark is a guy who has played back a fair bit, but given that he was in the midfield a bit more last week, had a big score off the back of that, I don't see any reason why he would go to the back line this week with Carlisle coming in as well. 11,000. Hard to catch Hunter Clark, but I think it might be his go tomorrow night.
All right, excellent. Anyone down here at value below 8-9K that's kind of sticking out, or do we just...
what's happened to Jaron Geary? 5 games in a row above 50. 4 of them were above 60. Still only 8,000. Seems to have been released a little bit lately. As much as you could say Jaron Geary has been released, but he seems a pretty safe option if you're looking for a cheaper guy. If we can ever say Geary's a safe option, but he's the guy that sort of immediately stood out for me among the cheaper backs.
All right, let's move on to the midfield end. And obviously there is plenty of Giants options that are at the higher end of the scale. And then outside of Jack Steele, there are plenty of cheaper options for the Saints. Look, Giants go well when they're up and about, and they don't go too well when they're on the other side of the ledger. So with the Saints favourite tonight, should we just concentrate on Saints mids? Or can we just back in the Giants at a higher price?
First of all, we're going to talk about Matt DeBoer. He doesn't seem to be doing many jobs lately. I wonder, do you know any reason for that, Smatho?
He's like playing across half forward. Has he been sending any CBAs? Have you got that Any CBAs there for you, mate?
I don't have the CBAs in front of me. He did. He's done a job on Fife and he's done a job on Cripps, but it's not like every week that he's been going to someone. Like what you say is right. He has been out of the centre bounce a lot more this year. In fact, the last 4 weeks since he's been back, he's been under 10% in all of them. So that makes me think like they don't have many players. Well, Billings maybe you could go to Billings, but it's only really Billings. Well, Brad Hill as well, I guess. But I don't think he's quite the aerial run with player DeBoer that it's going to go with Hill. He tends to pick a guy who's a bit more inside and bullocking. So Jack Steele, I love playing Jack Steele. He's a hard guy to tag because he's usually doing some sort of job himself. Why he didn't go to Tim Kelly last week, I've got no idea. There's plenty of guys that he could go to here, but when he does have a job, he seems to get a lot of the ball himself. So Steele's, even at 16K, I think there's enough cheap options on this slate that we can play a fair bit at Steele and be pretty happy. He's been so consistent all year. You don't have to look through. He's been wild. You look through his game log, he's had one game under 84 basically forever. So I love Jack Steele. Let's talk some cheaper guys here.
Yeah.
Because I think there's going to be a couple of guys who are really popular and they look really easy to play, basically because they've got these big numbers against a low salary. The first one's Jack Buckley. Now, Smatho, I'm sure you watched this guy very closely last week. What did you think?
Yeah, because everyone was on him last week. In the absence of Stephen Coniglio, like who's going to step up in the midfield? And also there was going to be some cheaper guys that they were going to step up, and it was him. So yeah, he played quite well. Good fantasy score. The salary's pretty good this week as well. It's 6,310. So you'll probably, outside of the rucks, be one of the popular guys on the slate. So I don't see why not, unless with Stephen Coniglio coming back into the team, if they plonk him in the middle, then where does he go? Across half back, in the forward pocket, half forward, just on the wing. It's quite sure this one.
Yeah, I just think you look at 6,300, it's got a 52 sitting against it. I think he's going to be really popular. If you're looking for a guy to maybe risk, I'll be happy to take a risk at fading Buckley. Well, I'm not saying he's a definite fade, but he's a guy that would be on my radar. Say maybe I could be under the field and get a little edge here. The other guy who is going to be hugely popular is Tom Green. He's a really hard one to sort of make out here, Green, because he comes off a game against Melbourne. So he's dominated Melbourne in the midfield, which everyone has done all year. You look at him, he's got 86. He's only 8,800. He had 30 touches. He just looks the part, Green. He just looks like an absolute contested bloody beast. He looked like their best midfielder last week in the clinches.
He did.
Which is amazing when we consider GWS having all these gun midfielders for years now. But then you think of some other games he's had this year, remembering that St Kilda are pretty hard to deal with, especially in contested ball. St Kilda and GWS are two of the stingiest teams in the league when it comes to giving up contested possessions. So when we look at a game like Port Adelaide, Green had 32. We look at a game like Geelong, Green had 27. That 86, is that just so far out of the box that maybe he can drop right off this week and he's going to have massive ownership. So I think he's harder to fade than Buckley. Both are obviously fine plays. I still think there's a little... I don't think he's the home run Tom Green that he might necessarily look like after 86 last week.
Now, before we move on, these cheaper Saints mids, Ross, Sinclair, Bradley Hill, Hanbury, Billings at 12K, is there any interest in those guys?
It's pretty cheap for Billings, isn't it? When looking at GWS, you probably can get them on the outside a little bit more than inside. So I don't really like playing Brad Hill. I don't really like playing Seb Ross. Billings has been really disappointing after looking like he was going to be a superstar and was just about ready to take the step. I can't really make a case for any of them like then you think of Hanbury. How long has it been since we've seen a big score from Hanbury? I think they're all somewhat playable without wanting to play any of them. So
Yep.
Yeah, they're very hard to come into, those guys, and I think that's just going to push the ownership towards Buckley and Green even higher, because it's very hard to find someone you trust. And when we talk about the big GWS mids too, how can you trust Cornelio? Although the numbers don't point to it, but he's got to have a bit of sting in the tail after getting dropped, surely. So, yeah, maybe that's something that we can find that the data's not going to tell us that he's going to come back and go berserk. Lockie Whitfield's a guy who has a massive upside, but also has a disturbingly low floor lately. If there is one spot to get St Kilda, it's generally on the outside more so than the inside, so that would point to Whitfield. And maybe a guy like Harry Perryman comes at pretty low ownership with one of those rare slate-busting scores that he can come out with from time to time.
Now let's move on to the forwards. And the guy that I was pretty keen on last game was Daniels. And he scored 3 goals. I thought, beauty's going to have a huge fantasy score, and he only bobs up with 74, which is great at his price, 9,350 this week. But if it's going to be that contested kind of grind, I think I can go back to him because he's a bit of a tackling nut. Outside of him, I don't really see any that scream out pick me at the moment, apart from maybe Toby Green in one of these kind of games. What do you think of that about here?
Yeah, you can always have some Toby Green because it doesn't matter who he's playing. If he's on, he can get you that 100, and he's not going to be too highly owned just because he's quite inconsistent. But I had the same as you. I was looking through the forwards thinking, I just don't want to play any of these. And I think that brings me back to Paddy Ryder, who's playable as a forward. I think Ryder forward, Mumford ruck is going to be a pretty popular combo, at least for me. I can't make a case for any of these forwards. Dan Butler's getting back down in price. We saw him get up towards 12,000, but he's really come back to earth the last sort of month or so. Those high games of 80 or something, they've totally disappeared. But we've talked about both teams very hard to score against from a fantasy perspective, and it's just reflected when you look through these names. There's some pretty average forward fantasy players, and it's a bad matchup for them. So, tell you what, I'm going to have a heap of Paddy Ryder.
Have a heap. Yeah. There's no point of us just trying to pick another one out here. Like maybe Membry, if they can get hold of the defense, maybe Josh Battle.
You got to look at guys with a ceiling and hope that they come off, but not many of them even have a ceiling. So
no, they don't.
It's hard work. Maybe you pay up for Toby Green, and you can save money elsewhere, or maybe you just pick your best 8 with Paddy Ryder at forward, and then you just roll the dice on these random forwards and just hope someone pops up. But we're not much help here. You're the winner. You should be tipping them.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough. Now, I've been squirming here waiting for this little bombshell to the end the show on tonight. I haven't seen a kaboom yet. What's happened? What's happening here? Have you didn't pull the trigger? Did you back out the last minute? What's happened?
No, the bombshell was you giving yourself the 2 thumbs up.
Oh.
I'm really interested in how that's going to go down with people because
it's going to go down committee style.
It's going to go down for sure, but and the Eagles are kicked away, so that's nice as well.
Oh, fair enough. All right, we'll wrap things up here for this edition of the Down Under Show. Nice little quick one. As we said, it was a bit of a hard slog, this particular match. So hopefully when we're back on the next edition, we have some more AFL fantasy action for you. Hef, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you. Leave us a comment with your best forward on the slate. We'll see if anyone can pick this. Not allowed to be Paddy Ryder. Give us someone else.
Let me quick look.
Actually, I was talking to the viewers. Get on YouTube and leave us a comment. Cover yourself in glory.
Let's do that.
Does anyone watch to the end? Will anyone heard this?
Anyone viewers for the show, leave us a comment if you watch the end of the show, and we'll see how many people. Because look at the analytics at the end of that and see how we do. So, all right.
Tell us who your favourite 40s on this slate, and we'll see if anyone comes up with the goods.
All right, fair enough. I'll be looking out for those comments. All right, Hef, we'll wrap things up there, and we'll see you next time on the Down Under Show. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, see you, mate.
Cheers.